go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Quarantine Collective's ongoing reading of Anti-Oedipus. Here we are, making our way through it. Time for those of you who know, this time around is a little bit different. We're going through and kind of spending a silly amount of time on really dumb shit by writing our own translation as we go, so we can actually be analyzing the original work itself instead of putting ourselves in a position of pretending that we understand what Hurley did. I think my favorite is a recent Meltdown someone who comes to the server quite a lot, who has a very good background in philosophy. We sat and they were going through it, and we were describing the difference between the original and the French. And it made him go down a rabbit hole of realizing that Hurley had translated a lot of his favorite works, like Clastres, Society Against the State. The translation everyone uses is Hurley. It's Hurley. So that's good. A lot of Foucault, too, by the way. And Bataille. So it's a lot of heartbreaking shit in there, to say the least. But generally speaking, glad to have you. Today we are making our way after we have spent a significant amount of time, and I will say it has been a significant amount of time, going over the idea of desire as produced by lack. Desire is produced by lack. Is it possible to share invites to this live VC to a friend? Discord.gg/DGQC. Anyone can generally join. If they're annoying or won't shut up and trolly, we will be banning, but, you know, welcome to it. That's just the way this shit goes. Okay. The idea of lack, as we were talking about last week, and it's kind of important as we make our way to this, because this is like a counter to that as a thing. The course setup kind of puts us in a place where the discussion is, if not that, which is the Lacanian version of lack, that the thing which the object is missing, or something else transcendent holds the key to things. This is the idea of lack-based ontology, which is what we were spending our time with last week, and kind of the ridiculous sort of indictment that it ends with. For those of you who don't remember, I'll just read the very, very, very end. If you have this kind of ontology, the world sees itself doubled by another world, whatever it may be, by favor of the itinerary following. The object lacks to desire, therefore the world does not contain all objects. At least one is lacking, that of desire. Therefore, there exists an elsewhere that contains the key to desire, of which this world lacks. Fundamentally, this is the sort of critique that they're going with. Guattari has written excessively on this and the idea of lack being fundamental to desire as a thing. This is a counter thesis. That's the idea here. This is the counter thesis, is what operates here. Okay. They're going to be going through a positive version of lack, how it can actually operate, how it works, and how the syntheses, which we've already gone through, sort of play through here. Be ready for Spinoza. Be ready for Spinoza. When we go back through, I will be doing my best to make sure that you don't have to have stress if you're not super Spinozy as a person. But otherwise, that's kind of the drive today. As always, super chats are appreciated. There's a Stream Elements link, subscription, like, all that fun shit. But let's make our way through and get to reading about, this is a big paragraph, by the way. There's a lot here. If desire produces, it produces the real. If desire is productive, it can only be so in reality and of reality. Desire is this ensemble of passive syntheses that machine partial objects, fluxes, and bodies, and which function as units of production. The real follows from it. It is the result of the passive syntheses of desire as autoproduction of the unconscious. Desire lacks nothing. It does not lack its object. Rather, it is the subject that lacks desire, or desire that lacks a fixed subject. There is a fixed subject only through repression. Desire and its object are one. It is the machine insofar as it is machine of machine. Desire is machine. The object of desire is still connected machine, so that the product is extracted from producing, and something detaches itself from producing into the product, which will give a remainder to the nomadic and vagabond subject. The objective being of desire is the real in itself. There is no particular form of existence that one could call psychic reality. As Marx says, there is no lack. There is passion as being natural and sensible object. It is not desire that leans on needs. It is the contrary. It is needs that derive from desire. They are counter products in the real that desire produces. Lack is a counter effect of desire. It is deposited, arranged, vacuolized in natural and social reality. Desire always holds close to the conditions of objective existence. It espouses them and follows them, does not survive them, displaces itself with them, which is why it is so easily desired to die, whereas need measures the distance of a subject that has lost desire by losing the passive synthesis of these conditions. Need as practice of the void has no other sense. To go seek, capture, parasitize the passive syntheses where they remain. We may well say, we are not herbs, we lost the chlorophyllian syntheses long ago, we must eat. Desire becomes then this abject fear of lacking. But precisely this phrase, it is not the poor or the dispossessed who pronounce it. They, on the contrary, know that they are close to the herbs, and that desire has need of a few things, not those left to them, but these very things of which one ceases to dispossess them, and which did not constitute a lack in the heart of the subject, but rather the objectivity of man, the objective being of man, for whom to desire is to produce in reality. The real is not impossible. In the real, on the contrary, everything is possible. Everything becomes possible. It is not desire that expresses a molar lack in the subject. It is a molar organization that destitutes desire of its objective being. Revolutionaries, artists, and seers are content to be objective, nothing but objective. They know that desire embraces life with a productive power and reproduces it in a manner all the more intense as it has little need. And too bad for those who believe it easy to say, or that it is an idea in books. Quote, "From the few readings I had done, I drew this conclusion that the men who were most steeped in life, who molded it, who were life itself, ate little, slept little, possessed few goods, if they had any. They maintained no illusions in matters of duty, of procreation for the limited ends of perpetuating the family or defending the state. The world of phantasms is the one we have not finished conquering. It is a world of the past, not of the future. To go forward, clinging to the past, is to drag with oneself the shackles of the convict. The living seer is Spinoza under the garb of the Neapolitan revolutionary. We know well where lack comes from, and its subjective correlate, the phantasm. Lack is arranged, organized in social production. It is counterproduced by the instance of anti-production, which folds back on the productive forces and appropriates them. It is never primary. Production is never organized in function of a prior lack. It is lack that comes to lodge itself, vacuolize itself, propagate itself according to the organization of a prior production. It is the art of a dominant class, this practice of the void as market economy. To organize lack in the abundance of production, to overturn all desire into the great fear of lacking, to make the object depend on a real production one supposes exterior to desire, the exigencies of rationality, while the production of desire passes into phantasm, and nothing other than phantasm. It's a lot. It's a lot. But it's excellent, by the way. It's excellent, by the way. I think it's excellent. Line by line. If desire produces, it produces the real. I'm just going to talk about the translation a little bit because It's a minor difference. It's actually, si le désir produit, il produit du real. You can translate this as it produces the real, as I have. Hurley does, its product is real. It's actually a really significant distortion of the original work. There, you can say, produit, these things, this repetition that they have in the original French is kind of the point. The idea is that desire produces, and what it produces is the real, of the real. Hurley turns the second verb there into a objectival predicate, which is really weird. Its product is real. If desire produces, its product is real. But that kind of has a few issues. First, the rhythm. There's a beauty to the prose, right? As a thing. The second thing it loses is it's a term called the partitive. It's the real, but it's making it substantive that desire generates it rather than a property of a product that is sort of left behind. And the categorical change, which is fundamentally important, and it's why I'm spending time on this, because when we get to the breakdown of this and the rest of this paragraph, it's going to be super huge, super huge. To me, desire's product is the real. Its product is real, is not the real. There's very particular Lacanian mentality around these terms that is being used. Again, Guattari comes from this. Deleuze also, by the way, if you haven't read Logic of Sense and his other works, the psychoanalytic background of the time that Deleuze is also coming from, not nearly as deep as Felix's, is very much Lacanian. Logic of Sense, he goes through this. He's not afraid of these things, but saying his product is real, okay, but then what produces the real? It's putting you in a really weird register categorically as opposed to other Lacanian, Freudian sort of thought process. It's weird. Desire produces the real. That is actually it, full stop. This is 100% how all of the secondary texts that they wrote about this, all of their interviews, everyone who's from this tradition, they understand this. It is straight up the real. The real is the world, as is, period. The end, full stop, done. It's an incredible setup. Yeah, Ben, it's genuinely amazing. Lacanian psychoanalysis, and Freud to a bit, and I would say colloquially, when we talk about what is real, okay, we'll have, oh, this is real, oh, this is possible, oh, this is imaginary. Like, these are colloquial terms, but they have backing. The idea is, in Lacan's world, the real, things that are what they are, we can't interface with directly. So I'm sitting here, I've got my desk in front of me, but I have to call it my desk. And actually, as I look at it, I can't help but understand it as my desk. The real is something inaccessible to me now, because I can only experience things via signification and imagination. I can only have my understanding of it. I can't actually interface with the real. It's actually kind of a brilliant thing he did. I really appreciate a lot of Lacan's work. The brilliance here is really significant. Okay. This is why this first 7 words are so fucking important, because this is their entire ontology in a single, simple statement. Single, simple statement. It's not that the real exists and then we produce the imaginary. We produce the real. That's it. Desire produces the real. What we experience is the real, and that's all there is. Always. It's kind of a huge shift. We'll be getting through all of this, but it's not that we have a lack produced by the real, which is, by the way, part of Lacan's setup. Because I can't engage the desk, then I have something missing from my experience. I have a natural lack, a castration of experience that is part of that children, babies don't have. They engage, but then they learn. They exist, they learn signification, they separate out, they have an understanding of the world that's more of a layer over it, blah, 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 blah. Hurley eliminates this. It's not the only time he does it in this paragraph or book. But this is really huge, and it's why I'm spending time on it. To be very specific. Go for it. I hear someone. JK, I think.
Yeah, hi. Would you say that the Lacanian interpretation is more like a Kantian idea of the noumenal, the in itself?
There's more parallels to it. It's not. I definitely wouldn't say it's identical. And again, I'm not a Kant expert. I'm pretty confident in my Lacanian readings these days. But generally speaking, it just has to do with us as we exist. Our existence is predicated on being able to interpret things and how we understand stuff. Again, not at birth. Over time, at some point, we learn, I am not the thing I see in the mirror. The easiest version of this. I'm not the thing I see in the mirror because I see a thing in the mirror that's not me. And suddenly I understand me as separate from the me that exists. And so the real and the symbolic and the imaginary sort of play together in order to generate the world and my understanding of it. They have a particular interplay. This is very in line with how Kant and his setup, and again, an entire tradition of the world, sees things as they are or things as we understand them. But they're collapsing this distinction. And it's kind of a huge thing. There is no doubled world. There is, as we talked about in the previous paragraph, there is no transcendent stockpile of fantasy hovering above the actual material conditions of the world. This is their response to the last line, like Rossett's last line, that thing I read at the beginning, doubled world, blah, blah. It's like, this is them saying, no, if desire produces, it produces the real. And this is kind of the entire point. They go on, though, of course, it's a gigantic paragraph. If desire is productive, it can only be so in reality and of reality. The first sentence said, what desire produces? The real, right? This is closing the escape routes you might use to get around that. Like they're doing, I'm not sure they could be more specific. Right? I don't think they could be more specific. Hey, nothing. Why do you have a crown next to your name? Because you're the number 2 commenter today and I can't turn it off. So you get to have that. This is a YouTube thing. I don't know why. Desire doesn't produce in your head and then you see the real. Like this is, I mean, really to JK's point, this is more directed at Kant, I think. Like this is more directed at Kant. And this is Kant in the Critique of Practical Reason defined desire as a faculty of being, right? And you are, through your representations, the cause of reality of the objects of those representations. And then is forced, we went through this earlier when they sort of, again, Deleuze has written on Kant a lot. Kant is incredibly important to Deleuze. But after all this is all immediately forced to be qualified. And Kant was forced to qualify by saying that desire can only produce things that are unreal, hallucinations, phantasms, fantasies. This was Kant's thing, right? And there's a footnote earlier that goes over it. That's what desire produces. No. If desire is productive, it can only be productive in reality and of reality. I like that, Ben. Kant is so important to Deleuze that Deleuze's book on Hume is probably a book on Kant. Actually, most of these books are probably books on Kant. Like Kant is one of the most important philosophers. I would just end there. So for Deleuze to deal with him as he does is kind of necessary, to say the least. To continue. Desire is this ensemble of passive syntheses that machine partial objects, fluxes and bodies, and which function as units of production. Okay. I'm not going to go into Hurley. Hurley's terrible here. This is like one of the worst. I'm not going to do it. This is just definitional and a formula of it. Desire is equals the passive syntheses, all the syntheses. Oh, thank you, Pierre Dubé, for the solar anuses. I got $5. Thank you very much. So it's absolute reality, not personal reality. Why would there be a difference? And that's the wrong question. We'll get to it. Don't worry. But the real is what is being produced by desire constantly. That's it. There's no, I wouldn't say there's no imagination. You have an imagination. Go ahead and use it. Imagine right now eating the world's largest Oreo. That's what's being produced. That's the real right there. You doing that. Now you're not. Now you're back, and now you're looking at a screen where a bunch of solar anuses are on it. The real is what is being produced constantly, and that includes your understanding of it constantly. It is the thing, the actual that is being made. We'll get there. We'll get there. We'll get there. But this is the definitional formula. Okay? The passive syntheses, which machine partial objects function as units of production. This is Hume, right? Empiricism and subjectivity, the passive syntheses, right? And difference of repetition. There's a thread straight through there, which is really big on Kant. All of this shit. The syntheses here, and we will go over this again in chapter 2, and they've been going over it kind of a lot here. But the reason that they're very specific about the passive syntheses is because they're constitutive at a level that is prior to any active me or you or subject. They happen to the unconscious as process. Okay? Partial objects, fluxes, bodies. These are the three syntheses of the chapter: the connective, the disjunctive, and the residual subject ultimately. That's the setup. But doesn't the real also incorporate the surplus from the object petit a that escapes the symbolic order? Nothing escapes the symbolic order for D and G. For Lacan, yes. But again, I'm not here to teach Lacan. You should go try to learn that from people who know Lacan a lot better than me. I'm building critiques of it. That's about it. For Lacan, let me rethink. Doesn't the real also incorporate the surplus from the object petit a that escapes the public order? It's probably too complex of an answer and question for me immediately. I'd have to think about that significantly. That's not an easy one. There is a Lacan reading group, by the way. Ben has linked to it in the Discord. We are a network of them. More or less. We're a network of all these nightmares. To continue, though. The real follows from it. It is the result of passive syntheses of desire as autoproduction of the unconscious. Okay. The real derives from the syntheses. And the real is the result of those syntheses qua the unconscious's auto-production of itself. Auto-production is really interesting. It's a formula that they're going to be using a lot that, again, comes with a handful of other sort of spaces and ideas. But more or less, the unconscious is not hidden context to be like uncovered and found. It's a process that produces itself. Right? They talked earlier about the schizo being this universal producer, the production of production, right? This is the idea. The unconscious auto-produces. It's auto-production of the unconscious. This is the thing. The real follows from it. It is the result of passive syntheses of desires, auto-production of the unconscious. Desire lacks nothing. It does not lack its object. This is basically anti-Hegel, anti-Lacan. Just, I'm not sure they could be more clear. No. There's like no. That's a no. Everything in the philosophical tradition of of anyone who's in the Hegelian, like any of that shit. Basically, and this includes like Foucault and others, define desire specifically that it's constituted through lack. Desire is a desire of the other, desire from the other. Like there's a lot of ways to formalize it, but lack of being is the main thing. They went over that in the prior paragraph. We talked about this, right? The simple negation that they have here is just head on saying no to straight up the main point of Lacanian and Hegelian philosophy. That's it. They explain why. Don't worry. I'm just being clear. This is what they're saying here. Why we'll get into, but this is no. Rather, it is the subject that lacks desire, or desire that lacks a fixed subject. There's a fixed subject only through repression. I'm not going to go through Hurley's thing again. I have notes on all of these sentences here. These are awful. Traditionally in Lacan, and you can read Zizek anywhere, and he will have the opposite of this. And it's not the subject that lacks desire. Desire lacks. Desire lacks. Desire lacks its object. And they're like, no, it's the subject that lacks desire. They're reversing it. Desire is not the property of a person, an ego, a subject, whatever you want to call that thing, who has something they lack. They aren't missing something and therefore desire, right? The subject is what desire generates. Okay? Repression fixes that. So it's a problem created by the system that it solves, and I'm putting that in quotes, itself, which is a bit of a process as a thing. There's an old, I'm just reminded of an old Taoist story of a guy who gets a dog, he beats it every single day, ties it up, beats it, walks out, beats it every day. And then when the dog's like 8 years old, children are walking by and the dog is rabidly barking at them and ready to attack him. And the guy proudly says, see, that's why I chained it up and beat it. That's kind of the thing that's happening here. That's kind of the thing that's happening here. The thing is, like, right here, they're making this commentary on the, like, third synthesis. Okay? We're going to be going over in a little bit here because they're starting to really make plays towards that. This is the conjunctive, the nomadic residual subject, right? The subject that's made is not pre-existing. The subject is an effect. The subject is not a cause. Fixed subjectivity is the achievement of repression. This is, Klosowski says this, Deleuze says this is difference and repetition, this is tons of stuff. But that's the thing to keep in mind as we go. Red State says on YouTube, this makes sense. The concept of semiosis as a process that constantly wishes to acquire the object, cause of desire, because it lacks it. For D&G, that's not how desire operates. And I could argue, I think pretty nicely, and I think Guattari does a very admirable job of this, that Lacan is actually kind of making these points without knowing it. And he's building towards this. There's a trajectory in Lacan that very clearly is heading towards this. They just beat him there and did it right. Holly asks in Discord, wait, so if I desire sunglasses because the sun is in my eyes, it's not from lack of sunglasses, but the fact that I'm creating sunglasses through my desire. That's fun wordplay. Let's talk about what it means for you to exist. Okay? For like you to exist as a thing. Because the eye that wants sunglasses is the eye that is produced positively from desire. Okay? It is not that you exist in a world and go, God, I wish I had something, and then magically sunglasses show up. You are produced as this. You are produced as the next. You're always produced in that moment. You're always being actualized. The subject that is created is always being made in that moment. That's the setup. The stable subject which is not what we're talking about here, but a stable subject that is built and exists through time as a thing, that's because of repression that it's built. But we'll be getting to that, Kali. Don't worry. That question specifically is actually a thing we'll be answering. Don't worry. It's exactly the right question. Source, God damn it. Spectacle. What the fuck? Why is my brain not working? I need to think of a book's name, and my brain's not letting me do it. Society of the Spectacle. Society of the Spectacle? I don't know why my brain is like saying that's not the title. That's 100% the title. It is the title. What is wrong with me? Debord's book. God damn it. Society of the Spectacle, and by the way, Marx, the answer is also Marx as a thing, is very clear that the consumer is not someone who pre-exists capital. The consumer is someone who actually exists at the end of production, that production itself actually creates consumption. And that process is very important to understanding how they're talking about desire here, because they're bringing it straight through. They're bringing it straight goddamn through. Not even a little bit. Like, this is straight goddamn through from Marx all the way. And that idea of the creation of the consumption in the production is going to be central to a lot of what we're talking about. We'll get through it, but it's there. We'll keep going. Desire and its object are one. It is the machine, insofar as it is machine of machine. The identity of desire and its object is a mode, specifically. That's what they're going through. Machine of machine, a machine plugged into machine, or a machine that machines, right? The idea of the productive syntheses that we've gone through, the and, again, it's a lot faster than that. I feel like I'm Stephen Wright being very slow when I talk, but the connective syntheses, where every machine is cutting the flux of another or connecting to that flux. The identity proper to machine, the machines of machines, is kind of the thing that they're talking about here. They're building an anti or unrepresentational or non-representational mode of understanding things, right? There's no gap in the world between desire and sunglasses, specifically aiming at Kali with that. There is no gap between desire and object, right? That's not a thing that exists. These are the same machinic relation fundamentally. Desire is machine. The object of desire is still connected machine, so that the product is extracted from producing, and something detaches itself from producing into the product, which will give a remainder to the nomadic and vagabond subject. Residuum, remainder. The third synthesis is what's begun here. The idea is basic. Desire and its object are both machines. So the product, the thing that was made, the made thing, is sloughed off from, disconnected from, like detached from the production, the actual activity of production itself. The made thing is snapped off from. And in that gap between producing and product, there's a thing that sort of is left behind. If you have a factory, doesn't matter what factory it is. In the game, satisfactory doesn't represent a factory. Actually, I'm gonna do this. We're gonna do metaphor time. I'm gonna see if this works. Someone tell me if I'm an idiot for it. In the video game Satisfactory, you have factories that build things and stuff comes out of them and it goes. But that's not how the real world works. That's how a video game world works. In the real world, when you have a factory, every single thing that happens leaves something behind. And I don't mean that it drops coins on the floor or points for a scoreboard, but there's a scrape, or there's a little bit extra here, or noise, or heat, or wear and tear, or whatever it is. The productive process leaves a little bit of something every single time production happens. Always, always, always. It's core marks. Core marks. Shit. Absolutely important. And it, by the way, also Klosowski, Living Currency, worth reading. So if you have a factory, when that factory stops working, I can walk in and I can smell if it's a bread factory. I can smell probably if it's a, I don't know, sulfur factory or fucking whatever. Like, there's something left behind every single time production happens. I'm giving simple versions of it, but it's incredibly multifaceted and complex. And that remainder of production, because no production is lossless. That's not how anything works in the real world. Okay? It's always, something is always detached, left behind, residual, residuum, that thing, that detached something. There's a little bit left over. That's the seed of the coming other machine, the Bachelor machine. Okay? This is the third regime that emerges from this disjunctive between desire machines and the body without organs. This nomadic subject produced from this is a, how to put it? It's a leftover. Is that remainder surplus? We're not going to call it that for now. We're not going to call it that for now. It's not quite surplus. That's overproduction. Different thing. This is just in the process, shit is left behind. Just little bits, not a lot. This isn't like, oh, I made a shoe in the shoe factory, so now I left a shoe on the ground. Oops. That's not it. That's not it. It's in the process. There's little bits, just little things left behind every time production happens that give a flavor, give a color, give a smell, give a something to that factory that is its unique character. It's probably the best way to describe it, because we use this term for production. We use this colloquially. The character of a building people have lived in or people have worked in versus others. How it's set up, how it smells, how it works. The leftovers of production, that doesn't just happen day one. That's not how a factory doesn't just get built like in Satisfactory or Factoria, where you just go, oh, it's placed. Cool, factory's there. And placed. And a factory's there. That's not how factories work. They're incredibly complex, constantly built, and that process, it's not done in an instant. These things exist in time, and their productive process exists in time. And all of those little decisions, from the bricks that are laid to make the factory, to when they put in the machinery, to when they decide to move it slightly and leave scratches in the ground where it's moved, or they have to rebuild it or take it apart. They have an extra part, or this or that, or whatever. Or that's where Steve's head got cut off, or this guy's hand got crushed. And so there's a little bit that the things of life that are production, there's no difference in any production that exists. Everything leaves something behind that generates the character of that. And I use character in the colloquial sense there. The leftovers are what make that. The residuum, yes. 100%. 100%. The objective being of desire is the real in itself. In Marx's manuscripts, where Marx defines the human as an objective being, an objective natural being whose objectivity is the sensuous embodied productive relation to other natural beings. Marx. D&G, who are using Marx 100, and when I say using every bit of it, I'm talking about like Native Americans using the cow, like every fucking bit of it, and taking it and doing what they want with it. They're saying that desire is that. Desire is the objective natural being. They're moving that into this ontology. They're reducing it from the representational complexity at large. They're not saying it's not true at large. It is, but they're saying it's also how these things work. Its mode of objectivity is the real in itself. There is no doubling. Okay? There is no remainder. There is no Lacanian symbolic other shit at all. This goes directly against the entire Lacanian doctrine, by the way. Also Freud, also Hegel, like pick a fucking thing. But that's what they're doing here. The objective being of desire is the real in itself. There is no particular form of existence that one could call psychic reality. If the real in itself is the objective being of desire, then there can't be another sphere of existence that is psychic reality. There's no second-ordered reality that mental products dwell in. That's not how it works. It's a refusal of Freud, fundamentally. It's a refusal of Freud fundamentally. When I say that this book is about, and it's really tough to understand because this book is about understanding a fundamentally different framework than probably everyone else, I'm not fucking around when I say that, by the way. There's no, I just imagined it. Oh, well, that's not, nope, all real. It's all real. You're making the real right now. We exist in time, in place, actualized all the time. Then we have a field of other things. There's a whole bunch of complexity here, but it's not that, well, I was in my imagination, which is a different existence, and I've got these things, and it's like, No. Because even Freud early, the distinction that we understand this as is Freud when he began moving past seduction theory, which is like right prior to 1900s. Freud is actually really interesting to read, by the way, and worthwhile. Super important for the book. Please do that. But the idea of fantasy was kind of built here. Fantasy as in another reality that exists on top of, near, next to, in our heads, around our heads, that is it just, we have our objective reality we all share that's like, oh, this is the video game world. And then like in the Matrix, I step outside of it. No, all of that's the real. All of that's the real. Literally all of it. Everything. Okay? All of it. As Marx says, there is no lack. There is passion as being natural and sensible object. Manuscripts. 1844 manuscripts. Go read all of them. This is from the Critique of Hegel, by the way. What would they say about hallucinations? It exists. Everything's real. Why hallucinations are no less real? Why would they be less real? A person is absolutely experiencing them. They're screaming. They're clawing at their skin, trying to get the spiders out. Why would you say they're not real?
They talk about hallucinations specifically. Have we gotten to that part yet? They talk specifically about like
Judge Schreber's Sunbeams. It's the third paragraph.
Yeah, like beneath every hallucination, beneath every sort of delusion, every I think, I feel, or I think or I see, there's this sort of deeper productive I feel first before it. Like the hallucinations are produced.
Yes. There, center myself a little bit. The answer is yes. Red State and YouTube says, in many ways, the layering of ontology borrows from a Cartesian framework. Problem we have is of communication between different levels. D&G follows Spinoza and Marx to undo that. That is pretty fucking well said. It's a very concise. Whenever people fit really important philosophical ideas inside of YouTube's character limit, I am impressed. But this is from Critique of Hegel. This is them. Marx, by the way, not Hegelian, inverting Hegel significantly. I have the quote specifically from it. When real corporeal man, with his feet firmly on solid earth, breathing in and out all the natural forces, posits his real objective, essential powers, as alien objects through his externalization, it is not the positing which is the subject. It is the subjectivity of objective essential powers, whose action, must therefore also be objective. An objective being acts objectively. It would not act objectively if objectivity were not implicit in its essential nature. Second quote, man is directly a natural being. As a natural being and as living natural being, he is, on the one hand, equipped with natural powers, with vital powers. He is an active natural being. As a natural, embodied, sentient, objective being, he is a suffering, conditioned, and limited being. That is to say, the objects of his drives exist outside him as objects independent of him. But these objects are objects of his need. They are essential, indispensable to the exercise and confirmation of his essential powers. To say that man is a corporeal, living, real, sensuous, objective being with natural powers means that he has real, sensuous objects as the objects of his being and his vital expression, or that he can only express his life on real, sensuous objects. So they're taking this. That's the end of the quote, sorry. They're taking this as me, not Marx. They're taking this and saying, passion replaces lack as a constitutive relation between the human and its objects. The passions are passive object affective relations to a sensuous outside that is not lacking at all, but does exist. There is no defect at origin. This was Marx's thing. There's no defect at the origin of this. This is not man who fucks up and creates capitalism. This is an organization and a structural thing. They're saying the same. They're, again, pulling it into desire. There's no defect at the origin of any of this. Only productive relations. That's it. That's it. It is not desire, to continue, it is not desire that leads on needs. It is the contrary. It is needs that derive from desire. They are counterproducts in the real that desire produces. This is like the opposite of Freud. This is the opposite of Freud. Freud, the term for this in psychoanalysis is propping, right? The idea is that like sexual desire props itself on need. We are animals that need to exist. We're biological. As such, since we need to procreate, desires are propped up by this and propped into place psychologically so that we have desire produced. And they're like, no, it's actually the opposite. Needs are the counterproduct of the real that desire is producing. Need only exists because desiring production exists first. Need is what gets produced against. That's probably the wrong word. Need gets produced as a counterproduct when desiring production is not working great, I would say. The paralogisms is where it comes from. I'm trying to figure out how to phrase it because the real that the desire produces is not like a utopian happy world. It's the world we live in, and there are things produced, but the production is very particular. Very particular. Need only exists because desiring production is first. Need is what is produced as a deficient mode of desiring production. It is a counter effect. As they say, lack is a counter effect of desire. It is deposited, arranged, vacualized in natural and social reality. Vacualized is really important. All of this is actually going to be super important as we go. We produce hunger and so on. We'll get to that. Stick around. I promise. We'll be talking about that. To say fundamentally, because a lot of you have already moved on past it, but it is a thing they're going to continue to hammer home because it is generally understood that lack is primary, that we're missing things. Because we're missing things, we then go out and get them. That's the idea. And this is like a negation heavy sort of existence. and this is the base of a huge amount of ideas and concepts today. They're saying the opposite. Lack is not primary. It is a counter effect. Now, they're being very operative here, and the thing lack does is operative. So like when they say it is deposited, like sediment in rock, it is deposited. It is laid out in a structure. It is arranged. It is vacuolized. It is made into empty enclosures. Negative space. Think of negative space. You don't make negative space, but negative space is vacuolized. Negative space is going to be the... Go for it.
Deleuze here in AO does this thing which he started doing in kind of like his difference in repetition, Spinoza, practical philosophy, logic of sense era, like what I guess you could call middle Deleuze, where he is smuggling Hume into his books without telling you. And he's assuming you have already read his book on Hume, and he's not talking about Hume because Hume isn't in favor in France at the time. But for Hume, drives, which is hunger, right? For animals, for humans, whatever, a drive or an instinct contains the immediate means for its own satisfaction. If I'm hungry, I just kill something and eat it, right? So how do we move beyond that instinctual sort of violent satisfaction of a drive is in the social world, the produced social world that is fully artificial and inventive of humans, that creates this sort of way for different heterogeneous subjects to integrate their desires, to create artificial and oblique satisfactions for their drive. So now it's not like I'm hungry, I'm going to go outside and kill an animal, cook it and eat it. It's I'm hungry, I need to go buy food, I need to store food in my home. Those kinds of needs are produced. The oblique and artificial satisfaction for drives are produced socially.
Well, and it's going to be right here is a statement they're making in this sentence that is going to be back at the end of the paragraph and going to be very important when we come to understand how class or capitalism or social order works. Because when they say deposited, arranged, and vacuolized in natural and social reality, the vacuolized is really important. They're using a biological term that we commonly have actually for cell structure, like topology, which is they love bringing in other areas of study. But when we have a cell or cellular structure, a multicellular organism, vacuoles are empty areas where things are sort of directed around or routed around things. Now, you can look at, and this is the lesson of the entire book. If you can do this, this book becomes way easier. If you can understand that negation is actually really a matter of perspective, more or less, that, yeah, there's a big emptiness here. Is it that there's an emptiness and we made emptiness, or did you make the stuff around the emptiness that creates the negative space? I'm not saying this is going to be the thing to understand what this means. If we're talking about it in terms of the cells of our body, it's easier. That's why I like that they use the term vacuolized, because that's the sort of jam, right? Your cells don't make vacuums. That's not how it works. But they make vacuoles. And they make vacuoles. There's little spots of emptiness that things are routed around. Now, why? Well, is it that they go, oh, we can't be there? No, they just build. They build topologically, and there is, at the end of it, this missing space. That's the difference in what they're talking about. That's the sort of thing fundamentally. Lack is the thing that remains when the productive flows of desire have been routed around things. Vacuoles within an otherwise full real, or within a full real, depending on how you want to talk about it. At the end of the paragraph, they're going to be talking about, and by the way, chapter 3 is about this. The line at the end, the dominant class arranges vacuoles deliberately. We'll get through that. It's going to be important. But that's like the thing to understand. That one. Does that make sense? Thank you, Organelles. Organelles nailed it. I can't show it, but in Discord there's a picture of a cell and there's vacuoles. That's just how shit was built. There's stuff in the vacuoles. Well, no, but yes, no. I mean, it's not like a vacuum of nothingness, but is it that they're building the negative or that they're building the space around it? Because those vacuoles are actually part of it. And that, like, again, the cell doesn't have I'm building this now. The processes is more the DNA and the conditions and the material that it has and it's producing. It's not going, all right, excellent. Now to build the nothing. That's not how it works. Now to build the nothing isn't a thing you do. Klosowski, I think, puts it beautifully when he says there's no such thing as a negation, because in order to talk about a negation, you must actually affirm it. It's a very simple logical argument that I really, really like. Because the first thing you have to do is actually point out the shit around the negation and to understand that thing. I love Klosowski. He gives a really great...
but okay, I feel if we I'm
sure the Lacanian feels called out. I'm shocked.
I'm just saying, like, that's a very, like, okay, how do you affirm a negation when you do understand it, and then maybe the negation will come back in a different form, or the affirmation will come back in a different form? I feel like it's a little bit lack of nuance when you say, oh, when you talk about negation, then you are affirming it. That's a little bit, isn't that a little bit too reductive?
No.
Okay, I'll talk with my cartel group about this. I'll get back to you. This is
it's an annoying one. Klosowski's response is fantastic, by the way. And Bergson, as Ben is pointing out, Deleuze certainly, but the idea of how negation works is actually really interesting, like fundamentally. Don't worry, we're going to be getting to literally that question. Don't worry. Like, actually, that question. I mean, we're there. Desire always holds close to the conditions of objective existence. It espouses them and follows them, does not survive them, displaces itself with them, which is why it is so easily desire to die, whereas need measures the distance of a subject that has lost desire by losing the passive synthesis of these conditions. There's kind of a lot said here. Up front, desire always holds close to the conditions of objective existence. Desire is structurally intimate with the conditions of its existence. It is more or less married to them. It is more or less something that follows them. It does not outlive those conditions, and it displaces with them. So, I mean, this is actually a direct response almost to LJ without LJ knowing that's what was coming out. I know you didn't know this, but when you're like, well, what about when nope, desire is right there. And there's no, well, what if, when? No, it's right now. It's back. It displaces with the conditions. As the conditions change, so does desire. Because conditions are, you could probably just say mortal. They're finite. They're finite. The conditions of objective existence include death, right? Desire is, because of this, easily desire to die. Like, it's what the conditions and desire are one in one. There's no, oh, the conditions are this. I'm going to extricate myself from my material conditions and make a decision and desire something else. That's not how it works. That's not how any of this works. It's not how any of this works. I know, sorry, 92. This again. I know. It's terrible. Poor 92 has to sit in all of these readings. Just the worst thing.
Just one question.
Please.
Does desire have a purpose?
No.
Okay.
Desire has no telos. No telos.
Okay. So it is just a process of movement now.
Desire is just doing its thing. Just doing its thing. Yeah, just doing its thing. The line here, and it sounds weird. Why are they bringing up death? We're going to be getting into the death drive a lot, especially in chapter 2, because it's kind of a big deal for Freud, huge deal for a bunch of thinkers, post-Deleuze and pre-Deleuze. But this answer is like kind of a really simple response that's like a Spinozist answer, I would argue. Desires, to JK's question, desires purpose, desires thing, what it does, its conatus, its existence, its drive, is not like so tied to existing or the thing that's happening that it doesn't conserve itself against anything. It instead works with conditions. Need, which is the opposite, need's very different. Need is something that measures that distance of a subject. And that distance between subject and what desire was, need is that thing detached from any of this. It's, oh, I had a desire, or desire which produced me, produced thing. My need is the distance between where desire was and where I am. That measured distance. Okay? And it's no longer involved in the passive syntheses of the conditions, which is kind of the big point, I think I'd argue, at this point. I need to mute all these notifications. What the fuck, Windows? Stop giving me fucking notifications. This is insane. Sorry, I don't know if you guys, can you hear every time it does this? I hope not. I really, really fucking hope not. Fuck, I can't. There it is. Notification settings. One sec. I just have to turn this shit off.
You said that the desire is something like Spinoza's conatus. Would that be also
No,
to,
Spinoza. No. Not that desire is like the conatus. So for Spinoza, the conatus is like the tendency of a thing to exist. That a thing exists and its tendency is to continue to exist. That's the conatus, is like the drive to existence. And they're saying, like, again, it's a Spinozist move to talk about this, but it's a Spinozist register, I should say. It's not the Spinozist answer directly, but it's saying no. The conatus of desire, its raison d'être, its thing, is not tied to conditions so tightly that it tries to keep those conditions going. No, it goes with them. Need is the one that measures the distance. Need is the one that measures distance. Conatus is conatus. It is Latin.
So
everything Spinoza is Latin.
So can we relate this idea of desire to Nietzsche's Dionysia?
Closer. It's more to his later writings of will. Yes, and again, this is why desire in English is a really tough one, because we tend to think I desire this or I desire that, because we tend to talk about personal desires. They're talking about desire as in the pre-personal thing, as in if I were to say your impulses, your passions, like that type of thing, you kind of get more of the vibe that it is the thing that sort of pushes you or pushes stuff. This is the desire they're talking about. Need, and this is why they have sentences like this, because it builds a very particular logical sort of back and forth. Need is the one that has the distance between the stable subject and where desire was. Desire is just built in its conditions ongoing and follows them where they go, which is why the death drive is possible. Like desire can desire death. Desire can be death. Why not? If that's where we're at, that's the thing. Need requires that distance, though. So then conatus is opposite of the call of the void? Yes. I think that's a fair way to put it. It's a tendency of a thing to self-exist. Again, Spinoza is not... Deleuze doesn't just use all Spinoza. He's playing with a lot of different things, but I probably shouldn't have fucking mixed thinkers. That's on me. I shouldn't have fucking done that. I'll figure out ways to... It just felt like, I don't know why I did that. I shouldn't have done that. That was dumb.
So we can associate desire with maybe his idea of the erotic and the death drive.
Desire would be in... Desire's in everything. Like, that's kind of the point. Like, desire is in everything. And this would include, by the way, paralogistic abstractions, which would be need and everything else. But it's desire that is sort of being turned against itself. Think of it, again, Nietzsche talks about ressentiment. Ressentiment is not separate from the will to power for Nietzsche. That is not the way to think of it. It's a formation and a mode of will when it's turned back on itself in impotent situations. That's more the way to consider it. This is similar in that way, that if we were to talk about desire, desire can be bent and fucked up in a ton of ways. It's still desire. It's just modes of it interfering and producing differently and working in ways that are broken, you could say, for its own internal logic. Thanks, Red State. Welcome, welcome. Glad you could find us. Could the word desire in the DNG replaced with energy? No. Nope. Trust me, I've spent a few years trying to figure out how to translate all of this. The French desire is not a thing to be fucked with. It's fantastic. It's just a thing that's tough to sort of start as a thing. Why am I still getting notifications? That's fucking frustrating. I just turned all notifications off and I'm getting dings and that's fucking crazy to me. What the shit? 2 seconds. Sorry. I've got to turn this off. Like it's my email and I know I've got important life things going on, but I don't need to hear all this shit. What the fuck, man? That's what I get for downloading fucking open source project. I'm just going to close it. I'm just going to turn off fucking Thunderboard. I don't care.
So for Deleuze, it would be the virtual then, desire as the ritual, right?
And actual.
And actual too, yeah. But actual is a kind of like ressentiment, isn't it? A kind of
can be. Again, it's still all desire. It's all desire. We'll keep going. This is covered here, and then I think a little bit more in the next paragraph if we get to it. We may not get to it today. This is a big fucking paragraph. Dense as shit. To talk about need, though, they continue. Need, as practice of the void, has no other sense. To go seek, capture, parasitize the passive syntheses where they remain. I am going to mention Hurley here. Hurley actually reverses the syntax and the emphasis here. Hurley translates this as, this is precisely the significance of need as a search in a void, hunting about trying to capture or become a parasite of passive syntheses and whatever vague word that may happen to exist. I don't even know what the fuck, how you do that. Jesus, even reading it aloud, it's like, what the fuck are you doing, dude? Hurley fucks with a lot of this, and it's really important. There is a precise technical phrase in here that they are using, okay? Need is practice. Need as a practice of the void has no other sense. It is a doing. It is a habit. It is a repetition. It's kind of important for Deleuze, by the way, the phrasing of this. This is what the void does, of the void. It's a practice of the void and has no other sense. Hurley fucks that up completely because need's operative definition is here. The practice of the void. The void is what is practiced. The need is the activity of organizing oneself around things that are not there. Okay? Seeking, capturing, parasitizing. Need is parasitic on the passive syntheses that still are dwelling somewhere. That's the thing. That's the phrasing that's important. That's the phrasing that's important. The passive syntheses remain. They aren't gone. We aren't in a different mode that they're not part of. We haven't stepped beyond these things. They remain. They abide, even where the subject may have lost contact wholly with them. Need is the attempt to recapture them parasitically. It is fundamentally, and I will say this very clearly, I believe this is a direct, easy sentence. Need is the molar relation to syntheses that have receded. This is Bergson, this is Bataille, this is all of it. I have no doubt whatsoever here. This is Klosowski, this is Deleuze, this is Guattari. This is really basic. The way that need works is in molar relation to syntheses that have receded. Okay? That's where need is. It is the practice of the void. We may well say we are not herbs. These are the examples they give to explain this. We are not herbs. We lost the chlorophyllian synthesis long ago. We must eat. I think herbs is better. Herbs and grasses. This is not just green plants. Sorry, Hurley. It's particular. It's rhetorical that they're playing this. The idea is we supposedly ground these things of need. I, Brooks, am not a plant. I cannot make my own food via chlorophyll. We have to eat. That's kind of the joke. Yeah, fine. We must eat. But the thing is, like at the fundamental, and they're going to be getting into this, the challenge is the fact that the like dependence on eating is not what desire means. Need is its own thing. We must eat is need, not desire. Desire as production is something else. So we might as well say, he's literally saying, you and I might as well say, well, we don't have, we're not grass. We lost the synthesis long ago, but we must eat. That's the play they're making at. That's the play they're making at. Desire becomes then this abject fear of lacking. But precisely this phrase, it is not the poor or the dispossessed who pronounce it. Need as distance, which is what they've been talking about, has an affective form. Affective. I'm trying to really overemphasize so it's not effective. Affective form. The abject fear of lacking. This is a pathology of the bourgeois. The anxiety of people who have properties, for whom not enough is a structured horizon for them. Desire becomes this abject fear of lacking, the fear of not having. This phrase is not the poor or the dispossessed who pronounce it. The people who don't have things don't say this. The poor, they on the contrary know that they are close to the grass, and that desire has need of few things, and not those things left to them, but the very things of which one ceases to dispossess them, which did not constitute a lack in the subject, but rather the objectivity of man, the objective being of man, for whom two desires produce in reality. We're going to do all of this. Oh, Noah, don't worry. I love their analysis here. We're going to get through it, and then I want you to tell me what you think. Don't worry, we'll get there. We'll get there. Where do I want to start? The abject fear of lacking is not the affective state of being poor and dispossessed. That's not actually how they affectively exist as a state. Okay? Despite however we may talk about it ideologically, that's not how they exist effectively. Not saying they don't have this, but it's an affective state. The affective state is of those who have something to lose. It's those who have something to lose. And they organize their lives around the fear of that potential loss. Propertied people project their structural anxiety onto poor as if the poor needed fear like this or were animated by it. This is Marx. This is Marx. This is the general law of capital accumulation, but adding an affective dimension to it that Marx never actually played with directly. They say, specifically, the social political weight of this is kind of significant. The poor know something that, or experience something the rich don't. They live close to the grass. The metaphor is odd, but they live close to the grass. That desire has need of few things. And what is missing is not the lack at the core of some interiority, but rather instead the objectivity of man, the embodied, productive, and sensuous relation to the world, to just quote Marx straight up, that constitutes humans for Marx. The dominant class dispossesses the poor, not of leftovers, but of the things that constitute human objective existence itself. Human's objective existence is the thing that's being removed by the bourgeois, is productivity, productive capacity, sensuous relation with the world, embodied connection with the world. That's what, for Marx, that's the thing that's being removed. The bourgeois aren't like stealing property. It's not about property being stolen from people. This is one of those things that is like, oh, we just need to redistribute it to everyone. No, that's the problem with capitalism, is not that everyone can have enough. Great. It's the organization fundamentally of all of it that puts people in a class and others that don't have this. Those who do have experience this fear harshly, and chances are, by the way, most people listening to this are part of that bourgeois class. I hate to tell you in the way they're talking about it here. But the poor who don't have anything, they experience actually something else. They lack the objectivity of man that has been deprived of them, productive capacity. This is them bringing again Marx and pulling it straight in. They're fusing Marx's setup of dispossession, and they're doing it with their anti-lack sort of argument here. It's not thing content that is stolen, but the objective being of subjects. That's their point. David Harvey has a phenomenal book on this called The New Imperialism that explains how this works, accumulation by dispossession. And he's very empirical. It's not quite the same ontological reading, obviously. He's a more traditional Marxist, but he will, if you're having trouble, he's a very, very, very readable Marxist who does exceptional work. It is not that the poor need and the rich desire. This is, again, that's the opposite. The poor have fundamentally had their humanity removed from them by the rich, by the bourgeois, by those who own the means of production. Their humanity has been fundamentally removed. That's the difference. They know they don't have a need. They're not worried about losing things. They have had their fundamental humanity removed. So what they're talking about here, in that sense, to just read it one more time. And I'll read it a little bit. We may well say, it's going to be all of this. We may well say, we're not grass. We lost the chlorophyll synthesis long ago, but we must eat. Need is born. Desire becomes then this abject fear of lacking. But we must eat. We must eat. We must eat. We lost that long. We must eat. But precisely this phrase, it's not the poor or the dispossessed who pronounce it. They, on the contrary, know they are close to the grass, that desire has need of few things, not those things left to them, but these very things of which one ceases to dispossess them, and which did not constitute a lack in the heart of the subject, but rather the objectivity of man, the objective being of man, for whom to desire is to produce, and to produce in reality. The real is not impossible. In the real, on the contrary, everything is possible. Everything becomes possible. This is the opposite of Lacan in every single fucking way. For Lacan, and for a lot of people in psychoanalytic thought, the real is defined as that which is impossible. Like, just literally, that's his thing. The real is l'impossible. Impossible. It's the thing that cannot be symbolized. The traumatic kernel, the obstacle of the symbolic that the symbolic fails to integrate. Yes.
I'm gonna. Well, if the impossible work with the negations, then the impossibility is experienced at the very bodily level. So it's very much possible within the body, right? You don't have to take it seriously. It's just we don't want to be that assured about how this is directly against Lacan's idea of the real. But I just want to have some.
I mean, in Eckhart, he defines the real as the impossible.
But nonetheless, the impossibility is experienced, right? The limit is experienced.
The limit is experienced, but that's not the real. It's the limit of the real.
Okay.
But that's not the real.
Well, okay.
Well,
okay.
Here's why it's important. And let me just, because it's a little bit polemic and maybe overly so, but they're being very specific here because they're saying the opposite. The real is not impossible. Actually, it is fundamentally the field of all that is possible. The locus where everything becomes possible. The becomes is really a big deal. The real as it exists for D&G is processual, procedural, ongoing, the generative. It's not static. Everything is possible. Everything becomes possible is it. And that's very much a call out to the opposite, where the real is the site of the desert, as Zizek says.
So the limits are dissolved.
Correct.
Right.
There's no limits. Well, bricks don't jump. In the Lacanian sense, around the real, there are no limits of what the real is. The real is everything. There are many limits within it, and there are interplays that are important, but it is all of it.
I think one difficulty we might be having in this discussion is people are bringing up crits and stuff that was written significantly after, like Deleuze's engagement with guattari. Like late Lacan and the real he talks about is different than early Lacan and the real that he talks about.
Not that
in some really meaningful ways that were influenced by Deleuze.
Not that well. Okay, so like the four concepts of psychoanalysis, which is Seminar 11, is 7-8 years prior to Anti-Oedipus, and 100% he says the real is impossible there. It's one of the four fundamental concepts. The real is the missed encounter, right?
I don't know, but
okay,
we'll get back to this.
We'll get back to it. That's fine. That's fine. But to continue, I read this as being it's a direct commentary on generalized psychoanalytic or psychiatric thought, because and philosophical thought. The real is not impossible. In the real, on the contrary, everything is possible. Everything becomes possible. It is not desire that expresses a molar lack in the subject. It is molar organization that destitutes desire of its objective being. And that's like, to go back to the grass as a thing. This is the same play, but talking about it directly as molar organization. Desire does not express lack in a subject, right? Which is traditional psychoanalytic thought. That's not the setup. Molar organization destitutes, removes, deprives desire of its objective being. That comment just a moment ago about Marx and how he talked about how it's not really that we just don't have money. That's not the thing. Or we don't have enough land. No. The problem is that the productive capacity of humanity has been deprived. That's why capitalism is fucked, by the way. It's not redistribution of wealth. It's the productive capacity of humanity, which is its objective being, has been fundamentally destroyed and removed in every single way. The same is true of desire and its objective being. This is a one-to-one. They're moving Marx in. The molar organization is what destitutes desire of its objective being. The political vocabulary is no accident. It is direct and specific. And it's very, very important to understand. Lack is an effect of molar disposition, deposition, arrangement as a thing. Revolutionaries, artists, and seers are content to be objective, nothing but objective. They know that desire embraces life with a productive power and reproduces it in a manner all the more intense as it has little need. Such a fucking good line about art. I fucking love this so much. This is like Rimbaud, basically. There's so much here I could just fucking play with, but
I think
go ahead.
Part of like an issue I have, and it might just be the way it's worded, is that this almost kind of like risks privileging those who are poor or dispossessed, which I know they're not doing. They're just trying to show that these social conditions have created conditions where individuals might fight for food, or they might seek to survive. But I think that the bit of a problem I have, though, is that the poor do not necessarily understand this kind of deprivation of their needs, politically speaking. I look to like MAGA, Trump, like impoverished MAGA peoples, where you can have poor or impoverished individuals who also think that escaping the system is also winning it in a way. So you'll have a lot of people who are impoverished or poor, where they don't conceptualize desire at the level of, oh, this system has deprived me of particular things I need to survive, therefore the system has constructed this. They look at it more of like it's their failure within said system. So I just think that this passage...
I think you're reading way too much in what they're saying.
You think that when they say it is not a phrase uttered by the poor, like... I think
the phrase you think that they're saying, I don't think it has a lot of the connotations you're adding to it. They say, they on the contrary know they are close to the grass. Desire has need of few things.
I'm contesting that. I don't think that they know fully, or they don't necessarily like approach it in the same way. There are poor people that don't think that their situation is quite problematic, and then they seek.
That is not what they're saying. That's not what they're saying at all. They don't say that people are happy. Like, this isn't saying like the poor are happy and aren't mad about things.
Right. It's saying that they know that they're close to the grass.
Right.
Is that true? Like, is that universally true that all poor people know that they're close to the grass, that they know that certain particular conditions have limited their ability to survive? Like, I understand.
That's literally the opposite of what they're saying here, Noah. Because their need to survive, you're literally saying that I'm trying to understand what you're saying, but it sounds like you're saying that their they're aware that they have need to survive. Like, that's the opposite. That the poor aren't, and they maybe have a lot of conversations, but the comment they're making is that desire has need of few things, not those things left to them, but the very things of which one ceases to dispossess them, which did not constitute a lack in the heart of the subject, blah, 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 blah. The thing poor people are upset about is that their humanity has been fundamentally eliminated. That's what they feel, that they're not part of things, that they're not productive, that they are missing. They probably they're worried about food and stuff like that as it happens, but there's a dispossessed existence where they're just not doing things. I don't think so, Ben. I actually disagree with that very much.
I'm not fully sure, because the way that I read this passage is again, sorry, I have the English translation in front of me. I should look at yours. But when it says desire needs very few things in quotes, it's kind of isolating that. When in the third synthesis, when the subject says, I am hungry, in the context of impoverished, poor, dispossessed people, they might not have food to, couple with various machines to satiate said hunger. And that.
Sorry, sorry, I don't have the Hurley in front of me to read off of. Say the phrase again.
Desire needs very few things, not those leftovers that chance come their way.
That's not in this at all. That's not in the original text at all.
Well,
no, in the original. Are you talking about in your text? Because it would be, and that desire has need of few things, not those things left to them, but these very things of which one ceased.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. It's that when we say desire need very few things, it's to me, it's obvious that they're talking about connections, disjunctions, conjunctions at a level that establishes a subject that might acquire food in order to survive, or water to drink, and that impoverished or dispossessed people might not have this access. So they're trying to show that when they say poor people being close to the grass, quote unquote, or they're showing poor people, they don't find necessarily themselves in terms of needing things like luxury cars or things that the rich might, quote unquote, need. Desire for them here is more at a base, quote unquote, level, not something secondarily understood. But what I'm trying to argue is that impoverished people themselves don't always just know that they are close to the grass or are akin to it. And I think we see that in a lot of impoverished communities who are seeking to become very rich, when in the translation here, it says they know that they are close to the herb. I don't fully agree with that with DNG. I just think it's an overgeneralization. Again, it seems like they're trying to criticize psychoanalysis for showing that it's not just this libidinal investment. There's this social process that makes it so certain people have access to luxury cars versus food and whatnot. So I see that they're trying to make that. I'm just saying that I fear that this reads as the impoverished maybe being closer to something more revolutionary, and that's just my comment.
Okay. As I'm reading it, what they're saying is actually quite different, and I may be wrong, so we'll just go with that. I just am not seeing the connection right now. So let me try again. When they open up with the idea of we might as well say we are not herbs. We lost the chlorophyllian synthesis long ago. We must eat. They're talking about the logic of needs being developed. The idea is that desire is about not having something, a hole that requires being filled. When we say, for example, that we are grass, we're not grass anymore. We're no longer grass. As such, we need to replace the thing that grass is missing because we're not that. It's a rationalization of a class of people who justify their hunger by pointing at the propping up of biological necessity in this case, but just generally this thing, the wanting more, the survival. But they're saying, no, it's not the poor who say this. We tend to consider, when we talk about the global poor, as they just want their share of things. They just want to make sure that they've got this, they've got X. They don't experience desire, though, as a haunting absence. They live with very little because they're poor. Their desire is calibrated to not having much, to that simplicity. It's not that they're not aware that there's not more produced or that there isn't other elements that. It's they aren't tormented by lack in a psychoanalytic sense at large. The abject fear of lacking.
I mean, that's such a hasty generalization to just say that poor aren't tormented by lack. Like they know that they are close to the herb and that desire has need a few things. I mean, look at the way people are voting, like impoverished communities, like voting, conservative and
I would, so, rich. Okay, we may be having a slightly different understanding of what poor means in these contexts.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interpreting it in terms of dispossession.
Okay, but also interpreting it in terms of American class. Like the poor in America, it's a different thing than, say, the poor in Southeast Asia, right? The existence.
Well, yeah, of course there are like varying levels, but like there are extremely.
I mean, there's significantly different levels.
Yeah, I mean, but that also goes from state to state. I mean, we can like split hairs here, but I still think that there are probably impoverished peoples also in Southeast Asia that align with wanting to get rich. Like I think to just make a global assumption that the poor, however we're, the dispossessed, I think is like the best way to define it. No, that desire has need a few things. Seems interesting just because, their entire work is about how people desire their own repression. So to me, it's just a little odd that they kind of conclude this.
I understand. Go ahead, LJ.
Sorry. I'm going to be fast. I agree with the first half of what Noah says, but I don't think they're saying like, oh, the people that's less advantageous is closer to being revolutionary. I don't think they're trying to say that at all. But I do agree with the point that Noah's trying to bring at large is that, there are a lot of more, like disadvantaged people monetarily, monetary or other kind of capital. They double down on some things. It's almost as if like it's difficult for them to even approach that direction than others. And then, like, why do people vote against their interests? At exactly the same point. So I do feel like this is a good point. I don't know if we should check what the earth mean here, because I feel like that's
let me try to restate what I was saying to Noah one more time, because I think we might be talking past each other, which tends to happen with us because Noah and I spend too much time with these texts. Let's talk about the distinction between a psychic lack and deprivation of human dignity. These are not the same thing. Now, we can talk about them as being the same thing, and the dominant ideology is that these things are collapsed together, that people are always wanting more, or that there is a consistent need. That is capitalism's thing, that we used to be plants, we aren't plants anymore, and therefore this. Now, the poor, their hunger is because they're fucking hungry. It is not, I don't know, I'm snacky and peckish, and I'm not sure if I'm going to have the bourgeois tea or this or blah, blah, like I just wish I could find something to satisfy my hunger. That is a different thing than being deprived socially in the world as a human, which is what the poor actually experience. So their lack, their needs, their setup, we collapse as a society into one gigantic, that people lack and that's what they need. It's the same thing. The poor person, they need more, they want more. Great. The rich person, they need more, they want more. But they're not the same thing. The bourgeois inner feeling of lack is the desire as void that you construct that is fundamentally incomplete at a molar level. That's not really how it builds for the poor. Do they have some version of this? Sure. That's not really the point. But their point directly is that you don't have food or shelter. That's not that deprivation doesn't generate actually the same setup. The poor in America don't lack in a psychological sense. They are being robbed. They don't have shit that they need as humans, which is different than need, right? So if Necessary Conversation show, they're bitching about the 4 different hospitals this fat old diabetic has had to go to, who's actively called for nuclear war and genocide and proud of it. He's had to go to 4 hospitals to find just exactly the right care. And at the same time, there's a lot of people who can't go to one hospital. That is not the same lack. One is psychologically driven. The other is materially driven. They're separating them. That's their point. The comfortable class says, oh, I justify my stuff. Biologically, we are not herbs. We must consume. It's an awkward thing, but the poor, they don't do that. They're closer to the grass in the sense of, it's not that they're aware of this. It's not that setup. They don't have to dress anything up.
I totally agree that they're there. And that's why I think to say that they know is a little bit different. To say that they're aware of it, you just said they're not necessarily
I would say they know. I think that's fair. There exists, but again,
I just don't think that dispossessed peoples all know that desire has quote unquote need of few things.
But
I'll say that they can experience that.
But again, don't step beyond what. See, this is the nuance. I think you're stepping beyond what they're saying very specifically. A poor person wakes up in the morning and is hungry. They experience that need. They are closer to the grass. This is what it means. They know that they experience directly, not need. Their bodies need, they're pushed to need things. They are experiencing imminently poverty and hunger in a way that is not considered or rational. The rich person has to justify it. The rich person has to say, oh, we lost that long ago, we must eat. Desire becomes an abject fear of lacking. But it is not the poor who pronounce this. The poor know they are close to the herb. They don't mean that they're closer to desire or any of those things, but they're aware that it's not about need. They actually just have those things missing, not those things left to them, the very things of which one ceases to dispossess them. That's different. It doesn't constitute lack. It is the experience of not having the things you need as a human. They're really materially deprived. That's why they're closer to the grass.
No, and I think that explanation does make sense. And I feel like I know how they're, trying to contest Lacan here. My biggest thing was just honestly awareness or knowing it. And I just think that carries some baggage. I think that they can experience it that way. But I even think that maybe, if people are starving and voting for people that will take away their food, then, or they're starving and they also know that they're grinding to get rich, or to escape or win the system, so to speak. I don't know if that means that they know desire has need of few things. And I think I don't know. That's just what I think.
Let me try to give an example. If you've ever worked with the unhoused, or the mentally ill unhoused, one of the things you see a lot is that people think they're doing like good work by walking around with like sandwiches and giving people sandwiches and healthy foods. And what people don't get is that those things are part of like a balanced meal program, but they're actually not very strong in terms of the actual caloric intake that people sort of get used to. People who are unhoused buy incredibly unhealthy, sugary things. It's not great, but it's because it gives them energy. It gives them a chance to do something, even if it's only for a short time. A balanced diet helps them for 20 seconds. It doesn't actually go into them. It doesn't help them sort of exist differently. This is the break and difference that they're referring to. The idea of what a person is missing. Oh, they don't have food just like me. I also if I didn't, oh, I must eat. We must, that considering it from the position of, well, I'm lacking because I have these needs. I have fear of losing these things. That ideology doesn't extend to the people who are actually impoverished, who experience hunger, who experience it imminently and directly. And when they say they know, they, on the contrary, they know. Let me go see the exact language they use. 1 second. They say in the French, savant. So it's sees knowing. It's not awareness in terms of rationality. This is they grasp. Maybe even better wording. They, on the contrary, grasp that they are close. Like they feel that they're closer to the grass. Desire has need of few things. They just experience the missing stuff of the world that has been removed from them and taken and stolen from them imminently. I don't know if that makes sense or helps. But that's kind of how I read it.
And I think, and again, I'm just being like, I spend a lot of time with the text too, so it's like I'm just being a little nitpicky with that kind of awareness or knowing.
I mean, you know me, like nitpickiness and
synthesis.
I don't abide nitpickiness ever. Nitpickiness and pedantry is not allowed here. You know me.
I mean, I just like I read a lot of this in the context of the third synthesis, so it's like when I look at it more as a question of affectivity rather than something like they retroactively look and know about desire. I look at it as something
it is maybe. The part I will agree is it comes out more romanticized than I like, for sure. Like it does romanticize the sort of salt of the earth bullshit. And again, it's maybe my read is not right either. I prefer my read because if you've ever actually experienced real poverty, it's not so much that, God, I wish I had a car, but literally especially if you have kids, moment to moment terror and knowing what has been removed from your allowances of life. It's fucking crazy. Like America is completely fucking broken in every way. We spend like wealthy homeowners are subsidized in the 200 billion range, and we don't have almost any low income home assistance in this country anymore. Like it's fucking crazy. But these are the things which one ceases to dispossess them. The deprivation is being done to the poor. It is not a condition that comes from their inner nature. The bourgeois, it is from how they exist because they exist in this really weird psychological space of, beyond means and developing and things turning back on themselves. So again, the particular organization of capital does produce in desire these odd vacuoles of lack in the bourgeois especially. And capitalism in turn has these people who have like a fake material deprivation. I shouldn't say fake because it is real. It's just psychological. But it's actually a real one for the poor. And what America does and capitalism has done, and it's really fucking cruel, and maybe why I come out a little too impassioned. Sorry, Noah. There's a proof of their deficiency internally in this. They're poor because they lack drive. They lack discipline. They lack desire. They lack something internally. That's why they are this. Not that they've had it taken and stolen from them because they've had their human dignity stomped into dog shit. That's the problem. The poor are not lacking. The poor are being robbed. So, yeah. And too bad for those who believe it is easy to say, or that it is an idea in books. There's a quote from Miller coming up. They're sort of, it's one of the things that you get as a response a lot too, especially I know Deleuze gets it. Still, even today, where it's like, people are like, oh, this is just an idea. It's not practical. This is only in books, blah, blah, blah. Like, literally, they're just sort of saying that. And then they go with the Miller quote. From the few readings I had done, I drew this conclusion that the men who were the most steeped in life, who molded it, life itself, ate little, slept little, possessed few goods, if they had any. They maintained no illusions in matters of duty, procreation, for the limited ends of perpetuating the family or defending the state. The world of phantasms is the one we have not finished conquering. It is the world of the past, not the future. To go forward, cling to the past, is to drag with oneself the shackles of the convict. I fucking love Miller. He's very, very good. There are people who live intensely, who do so with few material possessions and exemplify this idea of desire without lack. This is the term they're going to use is voyant, the seer artist who has some objective being without the mediations that attack or attach to the bourgeois. And they have a very particular play that they're making as they go through this, especially the second half of the sort of line. The men most within life refuse the imperatives that are attached to bourgeois existence. The idea of duty, procreation, family, defensive state, all of those things. Those are molar institutions. These things destitute desire. Just like capitalism destitutes the worker for Marx, these things destitute desire. The world of the phantasm, of fantasy, is not the world of the future. Like all I can think is right now, Wei Wu Wei. Like this is a very much Eastern philosophy, the good stuff at least. The good stuff at least. But it's anything we're considering, it's always, in fantasy, it's always the past. It's always a defeated past, by the way, as a thing. It's not a thing that reveals what is to come. Phantasm is never that. So if you cling to the past, it is like dragging around the shackles of the convict with the fucking giant ball that you see in those stupid cartoons. The idea of this perpetuation of a past attachment as if it was an opening of the future, they refuse. They refuse fully. The living seer is Spinoza under the garb of Neapolitan revolutionary. It's a hell of a reference, by the way. There's a few, we went over this last time because everyone's like, what the fuck does Neapolitan mean? And there's a lot of possible things. It's tough to know. Like, Miller wrote about these things, so it's probably a Miller line that follows up from that. We've had arguments on this, but the idea is pretty easy. Spinoza has a philosophy of substance and of joy, genuinely, that is embodied in a rebellious tradition of the Neapolitan revolutionary, Italian sort of thing. That insurrection, the revolution itself, the garb is the point here. It's the philosophy is the same, but the costume is different. Miller wrote a lot about Naples, a lot actually. And it plays with that sort of as a thing. Worth reading. I like Miller. And there's a self-portrait of Spinoza and Neapolitan cosplay. Yeah, that's the one. It's an interesting setup, but the idea, the seer, the revolutionary, the artist that they've been sort of talking about is Spinoza's insight philosophically, the idea that substance is fundamentally affirming and productive, that desire is of joy and conatus of existence, of continuing to connect, and that lack is, for Spinoza, lack was an illusion created by an affirming surrounding. And with that, they want to add the practical insurgency of the Italian revolutionary. They happen to have the image for that. It's theory and practice fused together. The idea of what Anti-Oedipus personified might be. more or less. I think that's probably how I'd phrase it. We well know where lack comes from, and its subjective correlate, the phantasm. Lack is arranged, organized in social production. That's it. Social production is where lack is arranged. That's it. I'm just going to leave it there. I'm not going to spend time on it. It is counterproduced by the instance of anti-production, which folds back on the productive forces and appropriates them. So the genesis of lack, which is what this is, the genesis of lack, that the bourgeois thing that they're talking about earlier, the distance between the subject and the former need. Lack is counterproduced within this. Anti-production, which is one of their sort of core concepts. This is part of the part of the system, alongside production, registration, and anti-production. The folding back on production and appropriating it is the fundamental topology to consider here. So, the body without organs is attractive and repulsive. In its repulsive phase, and when I say repulsive, think magnetic, not gross. Although gross technically, like the physical reaction, the repulsion, its repulsive phrase. The socius as inscribed surface, capital as anti-production. All of these things exist in that space of anti-production. The folding over, covering production. Anti-production covers production, folding it into it. Think of it like if you haven't ever made like a good croissant, you should try to do that. Croissant is not just dough thrown into an oven. You fold butter into it, and you fold it over and over and over, and it folds in, it envelops it, and you keep folding back, and that stuff is incorporated, but the fold, it's flattened, it envelops, it covers it. It seems like there's nothing inside of it, but it totally has all of that stuff inside of it, like a croissant. It's a croissant, basically. It's more complicated than that. You should read The Fold, Daniel Smith's translation, not the one that's out there, on if you're really in the mood for a lot of complexity. A lot. But within that folding back, anti-production is appropriating all the forces of production. Appropriating means takes on as if they appear to emanate from it. And again, this is not an illusion that it's emanating from it. It appears that way. Think of it like a magician's trick. We call them illusions, but they're not. Hey, I'm going to make your card disappear. Your card did, as far as you're fucking concerned, it appeared like your card disappeared. It's an illusion in the sense of other things happened, but that's not an illusion to you. Again, that's the thing to be considering. What is it in any moment? How is it set up? How is it building? Right? So that's the thing. What productive forces appear to bring and belong to anti-production, the productive subject are short of what is now claimed to come from elsewhere. Yeah. Yeah? Yes. When productive forces appear to belong to anti-production, the productive subjects are short of what is now claimed to come from elsewhere. That's what appropriation is. That's probably the best way to talk about appropriation. Does that make sense, Saddam? I know you're, I think you're still here. You asked me to talk about
That makes sense to me perfectly fine, but I'm not sure I know the precise difference between this and sur la batteur.
Sur la batteur is folds within. Falls back on and folds. It's the same thing. It's all about translation here. That's the fun part. Sur la batteur is literally folds back on. Falls back on is the traditional English translation. I don't like that because of a lot of reasons. Falls back on has a sense of like falls, oopsie, or like lands on. Folds on is the action that they're talking about. And also, by the way, because Like, again, I would again argue he literally wrote a book called The Fold. The folding operation is actually really important in very specific weird mathematics circles that Deleuze really enjoys playing in. So the fold is c'est Robert Sir is folding.
Imagine this is going to be far, far too simple, but is it anything like how a Mobius strip has only one side?
No. I'm trying to think about how to integrate that. Give me 2 seconds. Because it's not like you're thinking topologically. So it is thinking about it in that sense. Yes. When you think about the productive forces are happening and they're producing at large, there's a lot of these connections. And again, think about it in time. You right now, all of the parts that are making up, all the partial objects and connections and all the things that are firing off, you as one thing, you're not one thing. You're a weird metastable combination of all of these things. But as these things come together, there's like a weird sheet of them that shows up. Just like a fungus that grows, but there's not like a fungus on a big sheet of fucking wood. There's a lot of fungi that are covering it. It's kind of weird, but we look at it, we go, look at that fucking moss. It's a bunch of moss or a bunch of fungus or a bunch of mold, but it's not a mold, it's mold. But we talk about it as a thing. Now just imagine that all of that fungi also is, because it kind of looks like it. Now that we kind of take as a thing. And then when it smells, we don't go, all of that stuff smells. We say it smells. What has happened is topologically thinking through this, the process of it, the enveloping, it is sort of fallen back on all the productive processes underneath it. We've taken it for the thing that it is has now appropriated. It is all of that production. It is all of those things are producing it. Anti-production is what folds back on production and claims it for itself. Think of, I mean, I can't help but do this socially because it is primarily a social thing. Desire doesn't need to be maintained. Desire finds its desire. But if you're in like a group and you're like, hey, we've got our weekly D&D round, you all have to kind of work to maintain that D&D round and what it means. And it has a particular flavor and particular setup that is just all the people playing. It's just you guys getting together, but now it's a thing. So Steve, he's the one who's going to be bringing the snacks. Then your job is to bring the beer. And then John is the one who's going to be putting stuff. But the maintenance of it is now its own thing. And it seems like you say to yourself, boy, that D&D group really gives me a lot of fun. I really think it's that's not a thing. The D&D group has now taken on the actual thing, which is you and your buddies having a good time and kind of playing a game. But now it's a thing that has fallen back on production and claimed itself. This is what capital does. Capital at large does literally this, right? We think money and capital is what makes our society work. We talk about rich people as job producers, that if they invest money, it makes jobs, which is fucking stupid. But there's a lot of people who really talk about it. Capital has taken productivity and production and folded it into itself. So it kind of comes with it. But it's not the thing. It's not the thing as the productive setup. And the appearance of that emanation is the miraculation that is the discussed a little bit earlier in this, the paranoiac and miraculating machines. That's where that sort of comes from. So we have a really weird setup. Lack is produced here as almost counterproduct of that appropriation. Okay. So when productive forces, and I'll say it again, my notes, when productive forces appear to belong to anti-production, which is the abstract sort of thing to be maintained. For us, it's capital, might be the despotic body, might be that of the earth for primitives. The productive subjects are actually short of what is now claimed to come from elsewhere. If capital is where productivity is born and comes from, it's not from people anymore. They've been removed. They've had that removed from their existence entirely. And lack is here. It's counterproduced by the instance of anti-production, which falls back on the productive forces and appropriates them. Lack was never primary. Production is never organized in function of a prior lack. It is lack that comes to lodge itself, vacuolize itself, propagate itself according to the organization of a prior production. That's basically the setup, that the order is production first. And it's not all production finishes and then lack shows up. It's production begins. And as production's going, and there's a lot of productions going at once that are running into each other, that are doing all kinds of things. Lack comes after anti-production. Lack is not anti-production. Sorry, Collie. No. Lack comes after. It lodges itself. It makes itself into these negative spaces, the vacuoles, that propagate their own shape. And then they do so, but only according to the logic of prior production. This in time is going to be super important, by the way. Super important because of many things. The organization of a prior production. It's not that production's happening and its lack is made alongside it. The temporal order is production first, lack as the topology of vacuoles within the productive field produced. These are reflexive verbs used throughout this in the French, throughout it. So lack is performing these actions on itself, not on something else. It comes to lodge itself, vacuolize itself, propagate itself according to the organization of that prior production, according to that effect pattern of an already productive field that is already there. This is the opposite of a whole bunch of different ontologies. It is the art of the dominant. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, is capital the organ without body without organs?
Socius.
And that, and therefore there's where's the lack in the body without organs?
There isn't any. It comes after that in the productive process. It's produced only socially. So the BWO doesn't have lack. The BWO is filled. That's why the filled body without organs. That's why they use that phrasing. Because it doesn't have a lack. That's not really the setup. Lack is produced post hoc, post subject, actually. It lacks organs? It's not, but it's not a lack. It doesn't experience it as a lack.
So you're saying that the lack is the essential part of the capitalist process of production?
Yes. As we'll come to see, lack is actually constitutive of the capitalist mode of production. Not as much for the earth. Lack exists differently within the earth socius and very differently again within the despotic. But the social order that is capitalism, lack is constitutive of it. Very much. Well, I mean, that's this last, let me just read the last line because it is the art of a dominant class, this practice of the void as market economy, to organize lack in the abundance of production, to overturn all desire into a great fear of lacking, to make the object depend on a real production one supposes exterior to desire, the exigencies of rationality, while the production of desire passes into phantasm and nothing other than phantasm. And that's kind of like the final claim here is to make the political point explicit. The art of the void, which is a really fucking great, it's just a really great title for like a fucking album or something. It feels like. Art of the Void would be really great. I like that a lot. What does Hurley have? Not this. That's a terrible translation. What a terrible translation he did here. Not going over it. The art of the void is the practice of the dominant class. And again, they're really stepping away from using bourgeois or other things because dominant class is a very particular thing for them. Because they're talking about a cross across multiple socius. Like they're talking across all of it. The art of the void. The market economy is a practice of the void, right? Practice of the void. That's what they were talking about earlier. The way that it's set up is pretty easy. It's got 4 basic operations that they run through here. It organizes lack in the abundance of production. The production and paradox of artificial scarcity within material plenty. The thing I always like to remember people is for 5 years now, the world has made enough food. Just, it's kind of a weird thing we've done. We've had enough. And yet people are dying of hunger globally. It's kind of a weird thing, and people are going hungry. That's organizing lack in the abundance of production, right? Overturning all desire to the great fear of lacking. This affect itself is imposed on all desire. Overturning all desire into the great fear of lacking. Which is kind of what Noah was talking about earlier, actually. That everyone kind of experiences that terror. It's not just the wealthy. Again, I think they were being a little over-romanticized in their language, but I think it's a solid point. 3, make the object depend on real production, supposed exterior to desire. This is just installing the rational. Right, and I'm putting it in fucking quotes if you can't see it, but the exigencies of rationality are an alibi for things. Listen to reason. Don't you know how this works? Be rational. That claim, being rational, that doesn't mean be logical, by the way. That's not the thing. But installing rationality is the 3rd step. And then the 4th, which is like meanwhile, desiring production is transmitted into phantasm. Freud and psychoanalysis, but I would argue, welcome to the world now, all of desire's productive capacity is routed into what we call fantasy, or the domain of the phantasm, where we can contain it as a safe, simple solution. Safe, simple solution. Off it goes, illusion time, done. So this is the art, this is the structuration and building of class domination as it relates to desire. The next paragraph is going to be sort of playing through these things, right? Might be willing to sort of set this up, is Marx and Freud are being paralleled here. And we're kind of seeing a glimpse ahead of time of how they're going to sort of do away with a good amount of what Freud sort of talks about. Marx actually. I mean, Marx's thing is like production is supposed to be on the side of the rational. That's like Marx's domain of things. Desire and production seems to be shunted into fantasy, which is Freud's domain. You tend to see these things split up in critical theory, even today, I would argue. The two are kept separate, and this is kind of their point, because nobody wants desire to appear as a force in actual production. And that's the next paragraph opens with that and runs through this sort of artificial scarcity and how it's put in. Really solid, really interesting. 2.5 hours, 1 paragraph. Well, that's okay. That happens. I'm not doing another one. That was too much.
So could you understand, can we understand social production is something like what Bataille describes as work that kind of hijacks desire and it's captured in the work process, but it's not part of the continuity of desire anymore.
Say that one more time for me. I'm sorry.
So like Bataille has this idea of desire as a continuity, right? And then the whole project, the labor of work and so forth, is a discontinuity of that desire.
Mm-hmm.
And so the social production actually captures that desire and kind of like stifles it. It's no longer
Yes.
part of the continuity anymore.
Yes. Man, Bataille's good. I need to reread more Bataille. I need to reread too much. So Collie asks, but what about the sunglasses? Okay. I will try to suss it out from the paragraph, which is fine. There's a lot happening here, and it is more or less, hey, boy, it's really bright out. I need to go get sunglasses. Okay. Be careful how this works, because that sentence is the point. Like, that's the point, Collie. Right? You don't need sunglasses. When you say that, you're converting a biological condition and a stimulus response into justification for a structure of organized desire around a thing you do not have. You desire them. Nope, you need them, not desire. That's not the setup here. There's no desire. It's too bright out. That's it. What you need, you immediately close your eyes. That's like the drive. To need sunglasses, to desire sunglasses, for you to want them, there are levels of things. And this is kind of, to go to the grass thing, this is, you know what, this is probably a worthwhile few minutes. Let's talk about the layers that these things happen, because we're talking about distinctions between kind of two levels of things, okay? Level one is the objective conditions, like bodies against bodies. Sun's bright. Did you know that? Yeah, eyes are not supposed to look at it because bad. I'm just trying to think. The point is that, like, it's objectively, there's responses and stimuli and things that sort of happen that is a discomfort or damage or anything else. This is productive desire. This is like the objective conditions of productive desire. The machine eye couples with the flow of light from the sun. That's a connective synthesis process that goes. The second level of that is I need sunglasses, is organized lack. You have built in saying, oh, fuck, I guess I need sunglasses. My daughter said this to me yesterday. She doesn't need sunglasses. She has a structured desire process, and she has built a subjectivity around needing sunglasses. She could also just fucking wear a hat. She could do a billion other things. And they're cool. They are cool. Sunglasses are cool. That's great. But the anxiety of not having is a structured set of desires, and desire being structured into a thing. The anxiety that you don't have maybe the right pair, or strong enough, or comfortable, the right brand, the same status. All of these things exist. Just having the fear of, oh no, what'll happen to my eyes if it's exposed to the sun? Just that is structured desire. And this is where the dominant class's practice of the void is kicking in. Okay? And the vacuoles of lack organize. The coupling of eye-sun that exists is itself productive. It produced a lot of things, immediate things direct, right? These are machines to machines. A lie does not lack sunglasses at all.
Here's the thing that comes to my mind. It's okay. It's too bright out. I need sunglasses. You could do that. You could also, so you say there's a multitude of responses that one could have. It's too bright out. I need to close my eyes. Is that also not a desire? Like, yes. That's not...
It's literally arranged by social lack. The same way that before there were sunglasses, people probably didn't say they needed sunglasses. They probably said, I need a visor. I need a hat. I need to go indoors. I need to be under a tree. Sure. Yes. All of it is organized desire. Yes.
So you say that the consumerism that's involved in desiring sunglasses is part of the fantasy of the social production, right?
It's part. There are words added there, but more or less, it's social production. I don't know if I'd say fantasy of social production. We can. And that's where we tend to get things relegated to, but it's all desiring production. Flatly. You have a real material need and condition that exists, like a fundamental one, which is brightness, eye, flux, retina, whatever, right? And then you have the social molar production of your entire life that has been going, that is sort of what is relied upon and arranged around with lack to do this. The sunglasses industry that exists, your awareness of them, the thing that exists, the anxiety around having them, the anxiety around everyone else having them, what it looks like, that they're cool, the fear of UV damage to your eyes, the watching everyone talk about our idiot president staring at an eclipse, all of this stuff. That's great. But in that process, you now have a distance from a production that did exist. That it's not, I need glasses productive forward. I need sunglasses is a reactive past, because sunglasses aren't like, you don't just put them on. Like they're not just like natural things you have hanging around your neck. That's not how it works. You need that thing. So because of this, there's a step. Desire, which is productive, reactive. It sees the thing. Desire is destituted of its actual being by wearing sunglasses. And this is, by the way, it just to like add in, there's not a lot of like, this is bad or this is unethical. This is not the discussion we're having. This is about how people exist and how things are made. This isn't, there's a natural way for people to exist. No. There's not. That's not how it works. Everyone's contingent and socially made. But that thing that happens when you're wearing the sunglasses is you're not now connecting to the sun. You exist deprived of that connection that was happening. Now, and again, as you go, you might feel that. You might go, God, I wear sunglasses all the time. I need to find a place where I can take my sunglasses off. And there you go. You've got, again, this lack that is being vacuolized and organized as a thing, haunted by an image of yourself without the right protection or with the wrong protection or whatever it may be. So, again, DNG would not say don't get sunglasses. Go get sunglasses. The fuck? Your eyes are absolutely existing and they connect to real relations of a bright goddamn sun that sucks, and fuck, it sucks. You'll fuck your eyes up. Don't do that. Desire does what desire does. It produces the real. It's the real. You go get sunglasses. Great, you need sunglasses. But
no, this is okay. Go on.
But the abject fear of lacking, the anxiety that's produced around it, the arranging of lack within the abundance of production, which is part of that. You may not have it around this. That's great. Good for you. You probably have it around something. We all kind of do. And that thing, that's the deal. All right, go for it, Collie.
That's the book. I mean, that's like the book is addressing that then anxiety around lack and trying to refute that as part of like the process of desire. Is that like, I'm just trying to wrap my head because, Saddam says you blink because the sun's out. You don't need sunglasses because you need sunglasses because you don't have sunglasses. Like that's where we.
No. You need sunglasses not because you don't have sunglasses. Right. You need. Let's talk about it. The words are particular here, but the words kind of don't matter. You as a person who exists, if you stare at the sun for a moment, that's a bad idea, and you will physically feel it. And in that moment, you'll be like, God, I need something to cover it. Now, still, this is vacuoles of lack and social repression and organization. But yeah, you need sunglasses. Great. But let's say you're not looking at the sun, right? Let's say you're indoors somewhere like Andrew Tate. Sorry, I've watched too much fucking stoicism shit the last couple weeks. And you wear sunglasses everywhere because you kind of have small, weird eyes and you don't look very cool without them. That anxiety, the need for sunglasses, without that, it's still desire. It's still productive, but it's out of a different place. It's out of a different response. And that difference in response is the deal. And it's a thing I haven't been saying enough. I opened, and I will repeat it here. one of the things that is very misunderstood about this book, about Deleuze and Guattari's work, is that they are not lionizing the schizo subject. A schizo who is fully disconnected socially, who is not repressed at all, and who is just doing whatever and running in every direction, is not connecting socially. That's not who they're lionizing. The catatonic or the mental patient is not who they're lionizing. They're actually trying to figure out how we can develop an affirming version of subjectivity within this, because that's the play. They don't want to get rid of the subject. They don't want to get rid of the social order. We do really well socially. Sex is fun. Friend is fun. Dungeons and Dragons is fun. I like cooking meals for people. They don't want to get rid of these things, but it's a question of how these things exist and how we are organized within them and produced by them. That's the question at the center of it. So sunglasses are cool, great, or not cool. I don't give a shit. Sunglasses are fine.
Mhm.
The question is, are you wearing them because, holy shit, oh, fuck, I need some sunglasses. Oh, that's much better. Or are you wearing them because, oh, I mean, God, Balenciaga, I guess, but I don't, does that fit my face? Oh my God. And plus I'm under an umbrella. But oh my God, if I'm not wearing them, then people can see that my left eye is slightly red. Like, that is a different existence. And that's the difference that they're talking about. And it's not an easy one to delineate. Does that make sense, Collie?
Yeah. I'm just holding that with also the, like, a lack that's artificially generated. Like, you lack cool, like, eyes, or what, I don't know. You lack attractive features, so you must cover them with sunglasses. Something like that. Like, just trying to find the lack in that.
It's born out of an anxiety. It's a different thing than just connecting to the moment, the thing that's happening, more or less. I don't know if it's Josh's from Discord, but there's another Josh in YouTube who says it really nicely. This is all tied to Nietzsche's mnemonic, and they will be getting to this in chapter 3 very specifically. But the way that advertising or social pressures, and he says it very simply, the history of advertising stimuli has almost burnt sunglasses into your flesh. Now, it's an extreme way of saying what they're actually pointing out, which is the repetition of life, the thing we go through over time. These things carve into us, and the emotions carve into us, and our desire reacts to it. And those things, as they're built over time, are we reacting to the world as it is, or are we reacting to the structures and the situations we understand ourselves to be in, which is really a past production? Because that's the thing. Notice when we talk about sunglasses are 100% a past production. So the question is, why are you calling up a past production? How much of the past production are you pulling up? Is it the production of, oh shit, my eyes, oh, sunglasses. Oh, yeah, we can talk about that. Or is it all these other, oh my God, where are my sunglasses? It's like walking out of your house and you realize you don't have your phone, right? Or you feel the vibration, the phantom vibration of a phone that you don't have, and you have like I can't be the only fucking person in the world. You have like an anxiety attack of like, oh my God, where the fuck is my goddamn phone? And really it's sitting next to you, but you couldn't feel it. The anxiety that's not the same thing as going, oh, I'd love to call my wife. These are two different existences fundamentally, but they kind of seem the same. That's a problem. It's a problem.
Yeah.
And that's why next week, go ahead. Okay, no, please.
I'm just trying to extrapolate further. So, like, if desire is productive, or like a mode of desire that's productive, rather than from a socially organized lack, right? That's like the model that's being presented.
It's always going to be from a social organized lack. Okay. Because it's always the way that you understand that I'm talking to you right now, that I'm saying, hey, Collie, and I'm responding to you, that is the same organized lack as the sunglasses. It just functions and works different enough that it's worth us considering. Because to go back to like the underlying stuff of this is, why is it that socially men desire their own repression? Women too, but I'd say men in like the human sense. Why men and women and people and children, everyone desire their own repression? Because we live in a society, to take the meme. So why is a society prone to this, or how is it organized in a way that encourages this type of fascizing direction of things? Is there another way to be that allows for us to be freed in all of this? That kind of stuff. That's the kind of interesting convo.
Yeah.
So is this kind of the desire with a lack, similar to Nietzsche's idea of a ressentiment, and that it is a kind of it's not true desire, but it is a kind of desire that's been hijacked by the capitalist society, right, and production, and
hijacked,
thinking that we need something because of lack, rather than desiring something without the lack.
Yeah, and I would the only thing I would say is I don't think hijacked is the right word, because it's just emergent generally. The thing, and the ressentiment with Nietzsche is like the best way to talk about it, because a lot of people think of ressentiment as like, oh, Nietzsche talks about the will when it's corrupted. No, like the wording's pretty particular. It's when the will turns back on itself because it has no outlet. It produces ressentiment. So it's actually an interaction of the will against itself under determinate conditions, that you find this organization of the will that Nietzsche determines and calls ressentiment. Desire is the same way. Everything is desire. Everything is desire. To say again, all of the shit that we're talking about, if it's Lacanian psychoanalytic thought, that's the real being created right now by desire. As I've just said that, and you thinking about it, you fantasizing about some person, that's not unreal. That's the real being produced actively by desire through all of these fucked up interactions that are bending it against itself and reflecting off of it. Very much. There's no separation between desire, the real, and anything else. Everything is that. It's just a matter of how production happens and how these things are produced. And again, not in an unreal way. It's always real, but we just don't understand all the steps.
I think it can somewhat help to highlight that there isn't necessarily a clear difference of kind between the I that sends a signal to try and communicate as an embodied mind to another embodied mind, that the conditions in which it is currently in right now are not like the kind of like fold that it would like to surround itself with, right? And so it's, in a sense, conveying that there is something happening that is destabilizing its ability to be the thing that it materially wants to be, in a sense. And so when it gives you that signal that, you know, that you interpret as you need sunglasses, it is in its own way declaring its own type of lack in its own molar context to you.
Yes, a newborn infant, literally freshborn, will be screaming and sucking in air. Now, this is not, some people will say, oh, that's because it knows it needs to feed, and that's why we're built this way. That's stupid. That's stupid. It's real stupid. The idea that like there's a primordial memory waiting for someone. No, the organization of the human body at birth is such that this is the case, that all of these nerves firing, all of the stimuli hitting at once that have never been hit before, which includes temperature and skin and air and light and noise and sharpness, sharp noises, sharp light, sharp temperature changes. Those are things that an infant on birth pulled out of a mom feels immediately. And as that happens, their body is organized and set up where thing connects to thing to thing. There's all of these reactions. We personalize, we call them things. We say, oh my God, he's crying. He's just firing. There's just all of this firing off. The setup is emergent over time as you exist. If I see my son crying, it's not the same thing in the sense of it's not just purely all of his synapses firing off in one particular direction. It's the next step. It's in time, production has fallen back, the idea of production or what production is fallen back on itself, and they've begun to interfere and interplay. Later, Nietzsche, as someone mentioned earlier, Dionysus, is absolutely the direction generally to go. It's why I really like Klosowski's reading of Nietzsche. It's still desire or will or the impulses. I prefer Klosowski's term for this. But these things that are firing off, they interfere with each other the same way that waves in the ocean interfere. And a big giant wave is not fundamentally a different thing than a low tide. It's the water's the water. The water doesn't wave. The wave is an aspect of the water. And that's more the way to be considering this with all of the different things that happen. You stand at the beach and there will be a small wave that crashes. That small wave is not a small wave. It is the result of 1 billion interactions between an infinite number of water particles, animals, climate, temperature changes, whatever it is throughout the entirety of the ocean, earth, and everything beyond that has resulted in that actual moment that you're witnessing as it happened and going away. And you are no different than that wave. Neither is anything else. We're just as complex, and it's understanding that productive capacity, how these things fall back on themselves, how they go back and forth, that enables us to have change, that enables us to think about how society and the social world can be organized. And I say that with space intentionally. It can be organized so that way we're able to actually continually be in a space of, I believe, as I read the book, one of continuous permanent revolution, instead of a focus on getting back to stability and a demand for the maintenance of the state, the military, and other industries. Just my thought.
I'm not trying to drag this out.
Oh, you are.
Oh, whatever. I am. But I'm just, because part of it is also the subject that we've talked about in this reading and this vicious circle reading as well, of I'm not going to use the right words, but the unstable self or whatever, the constantly changing subject.
Yes.
That is desiring, or desire is creating the subject through the residue. So it's just to try to keep it to sunglasses. If it's I desire sunglasses, but it's the sunglasses that desire me. No, but it's the idea of sunglasses is the fact that I have the idea that sunglasses exist contributes to my, subjectification or whatever person that I am, ego that I've created because I live in a world where I know sunglasses and an infant doesn't, and contributes. I don't know. It feels like this Ouroboros.
No, it's an Ouroboros, except think of it as everything is now, and then the past is haunting and affecting. An animal. I've kept a bunch of lizards and gerbils in my life, and dogs. If you ever worked in a shelter, things that happen is animals will shit. Now, some animals don't care about it, but dogs, for example, they'll shit on the floor. But if you keep them in a tiny little room and you don't clean up after them, what'll happen is they'll shit on the floor, and then that room, they start to understand that the place to shit is where they happen to shit the first time. That's not how they don't go, ah, yes, that must be the toilet. But it's just, that's where they happen to shit. And they'll do it again, and they'll do it again because that's where that was. There's a recording. But that recording exists in time and space, and I can access it by smell. We are that. Our subjectivity is the little shit pellets that our desiring production is leaving behind, and then working around and continually working with until the shit pellets believe that they're real. And then at that point, we need to understand this is how we were made. And all of these things that have happened that put us here, if we don't understand that, we're just simply at the end of the process and just devouring shit all day. That's a lot of poop, I guess. I'm tired. Once I start getting into shit metaphors, I know it's the end of my stream.
It's the solar anus connection. It's the solar anus. It's just automatically with the synthesis is there. Okay, well, thank you for getting
too much
into
poop. That was too much poop. I'm sorry about the poop at the end there. That was a lot of poo. I don't really have my brain is not happy right now. That's fine. All right.
Good night, Brooks and Ben.
Yeah. It's such a fun discussion because this is, and in the coming piece I've got on the Stoics, which is hitting maybe next week. I'm not quite sure. I'm trying to get it done. But the big piece, it's about understanding the practice. It's one of the things Deleuze attaches to the Stoics for, and it's through Goldschmidt, but it's the way that failure can become success. And it's a really phenomenal understanding of how existence works. This is fundamentally also Klosowski's living currency. One of the things people don't understand, and Klosowski goes into it, and I really love it, is people like to think of factories as they're built and they produce a thing. And that's really as far as people understand or care to understand the process. But the thing is, every factory had to be practiced. Factories practice. And people don't know this unless they've actually had to build or be part of this. But prototyping starts at tiny little levels and then expands outwards. And there's an extraordinary amount of waste product that is in this. Like an amazingly large amount of waste product. And waste product isn't just, we'd like to think of it, we put it away, we throw it out, it goes in the dump, it goes away. So we tend not to think about it. But if you just consider waste product what it is, it's all the things you're defining yourself as not. That's the stuff that didn't work. And that productivity sticks with a factory, just like it does with you. The waste product, that's why I use the shit thing as a example, because it's the best way to talk about it. You are a massive endpoint of a fuck ton of factories that constantly are wasting. And you exist as that. From the, I shouldn't do that, should do that, want to be this, do that, understand this, all the productivity that exists that sort of outlines you is waste product of a very productive process. And I think Klosowski, Living Currency, very short book, everyone should fucking read. But the idea of how that final product exists, or how you exist, or any of that, all of these guys, all of these writings hover around the same kind of thing. And it's an understanding that you are the end point. And if an end point, it doesn't mean you're determined, that there's no change. But if the process of production, which you are also part of, even if you're an endpoint, can actually grasp itself and begin to make understandings and modify that, you actually have the ability to fundamentally change, but it can't be from anything but lack of anything that is short of understanding that whole process. I'm going to lose weight by working out more. That is not how it works. Unless you're already someone who's already inclined to do that thing. Fundamentally understanding all of the different parts is the reason that this changes, because it's you, it's the social space you're in, the people you're around, the material conditions you're in, and all those other things. And when you understand that it's not that the poor lack, it's that the poor are deprived. The bourgeois lack, they are not deprived. That difference, and you can see it in, today's culture it's really obvious, and I think a lot of people are starting to understand this more and more. When you see rich people talk about how sad their lives were during COVID, like Ellen, about how she's stuck inside of her fucking huge mansion with like an indoor pool and everything, like they were deprived. No, they weren't. They lack. People were deprived. I had a friend who, his 3 kids in their 1-bedroom apartment had to be there for like 5 months because they had no school. He was deprived. Didn't lack. There's a difference. That's it. I'm going to bounce out. As I like to say always, thank all of you very, very much. It's always wonderful. It's always amazing. I'm going to be streaming a little bit. But Thursday, we've got Klosowski. Please do join, because we're kind of going over one of these things almost exactly in every single way. And Raiko, you go to sleep. Get the fuck out. Get the fuck out. Go to sleep. Sleep, 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 sleep. Sleep, sleep, sleep. With that, thank all of you. I'll see you soon enough.